Sue Wilson, and I have a lovely card today that showcases our new 3D embossing folders. Plus, I'll show you a fun trick to do with your gilding flakes too. So here's what we're going to be using. This is the Opulent Frame, which is one of the new 3D embossing folders, and it is absolutely stunning. I'm going to be using a stamp that matches our Phoebe die, which is called Fleur. The clear stamp set my sentiment comes from is the Petite Lavish sentiments. This is the Phoebe die we'll be using to cut out our gilded stamped image with. And from the Chloe die, I'm just going to be using a couple of these little flowers because it just needs a little bit of a floral element on our sentiment. And from the frames and tags, we're going to be using the Ava die, and we'll show you how to turn this into a square. Okay. So pop these all to the side, and I think I'll start with the embossing first. I've got a piece of white card. I'll give you a quick measurement. It is 5 and, let's see, just over 5.5 by just under 7.5 inches. Okay, pop that right inside of the Opulent Frame. Get that all nice and lined up. And the sandwich for this is just your folder with your card in it and a raspberry adapter plate. Okay, one time through. I'll show you this absolute lovely emboss. Is that amazing? Look at the detail on that. It just looks like carved wood. It's so deep, it's so beautiful. Love this. So I've got one I've done earlier. I'll bring that over, and I've actually done a little bit of matting and layering with it, so we'll use this one. I'm going to move up from that. And next we're going to do some gilding. So I've got a piece of black card. I've got my stamp just put onto an acrylic block, and I'm going to use some of the flaking glitter glue. Now I personally like to put this onto a piece of wax paper. This glue is really sticky, so I don't like to get it onto my craft mat, and I just always unscrew the top. And I put a little bit out, okay? Whatever I don't use, I can put back in, not a problem. I use a piece of cut and dry foam, and I sort of just make like a palette out of it, if that makes sense. And we're going to tap it onto our stamp. Just make sure we've got it all around there. And you don't want it to be too terribly thick. It should have that sort of pale blue color to it as you put it on. Tap it all around. Pick up a little bit more of that. There we go. And I've got a little bit in the middle, but we're going to cover that, so I'm not even fussed if that picks up a little bit of a gilding flake in there. There we go. Okay, set that to the side. Now, I never stamp these to the card, but what you want to do is lay the card down, and this is what I call the 3-second rule. Just rub it and peel it off in 3 seconds, okay? Now it is important that you take and clean your stamp. That can sit for as long as you want it to. It will not actually dry until you put the gilding flakes on it or glitter or whatever. It will actually always stay tacky, so there's no rush whatsoever on that. But you do want to clean this off of your stamp because it will just get really tacky if you leave it on there. There we go. Make sure you clean that really well. Once you've got that glue right off the surface of your stamped image, it's fine. So I'll pop that to the side. And let me just get a quick paper towel. So the thing here you need to look for is it's got to be perfectly clear before you do your gilding. So if you want, you can do what I call the wafting method. Just give it a little bit of time, waft it back and forth, and it'll start to get that real clear look to it. If you've stamped it really heavy, you're going to have a lot of that, what I said, that little blue look, and you have to be careful. If you put the gilding flakes on when it's really heavily like that, you can smear it because it's not sticky enough, okay? So I'm going to give this a couple of seconds. I'm going to kind of just go back and forth. In fact, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll leave that, and we'll do the Ava die next, and then we'll come back to that, and I'll just show you how you don't have to do it very quickly. So I've cut the Ava die, and it's a rectangle in shape. So what I want to do is cut it, and I find it's easiest if I just cut it in half and then put the two halves together, line them up, and then cut them together. Now I've sort of worked out that if I need to cut it right about just before that little round part, and I'll get a nice square. So I'm just going to even it up against that line here. There we go. Cut that off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn them upside down and put them back together. A little bit of tape. There we go. Tape that right into place. That should be enough. I'm going to use a little bit of mounting foam across it. That way. That way. Peel that off. I'm going to bring this back, and then we can just seat this in the center of the frame. It's absolutely perfect shape-wise now for that. Okay, and we're going to cover that, so don't panic. Okay, so next, we're going to go ahead and do our gilding. That looks like it's perfectly clear there. We've got some Gemstones gilding flakes. I'm going to just pop a few on there. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's see if we can keep this a little bit tidier. I tend to be a little heavy-handed with gilding flakes. Put a few down, right up in that corner. Let's get a few more there. Oh, that's plenty. I'm going to bring in a piece of Rub It, Scrub It pad. Now this comes in a big sheet from Ranger, and you just want to cut a little bit of it off. And what I do is I move it around till it's all attached. Okay, and a lot of people will stop at this point and think, oh, that's rubbish, I haven't done it right, but you're not done yet. So what you want to do is just take, in a very gentle circular motion, going to take and sort of refine these, and it just takes the excess bits off. There we go. Let me just see if I can take those out of the way here for us. I'm going to pop these back into our container and maybe even rub it a tiny bit more. There we go. You can see that beautiful pattern coming up and all that lovely variation in the flake coming through. It's so pretty. Okay, so that is pretty good. I'm not going to bother with the dust here, so I'll just move that out of the way. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to cover this with a piece of sticky adhesive sheet, but once I do that, I'm not going to be able to see it. So I've taken and made a little bit of a frame. So what I want to do is put this into place where it needs to go. And I'm going to use a bit of tape to line it up and give it what I call a hinge. That looks like it's pretty good. There we go. Okay, so now I can hinge this up, fold it back, and flop that down into place. So once I put my sticky adhesive sheet on, I should be able to cut that by doing it that way. So let me just peel the backing off of this. There we go. Put that right into place over it. Okay. Flop that down. And generally speaking, I try to tape it down once it's in place. I'm going to bring in the cutting edge, and I should be able to just slot that back in. Just wiggle it around, make sure you're in there really good. Tape that. Okay. I'm going to bring in our cutting plates. Pop that in there. Run that through. Okay, so that should be lined up really nicely to have the stamped image with the sticky adhesive sheet over it. Get my tape up. There we go. There we go. Don't need that. All right. Take this piece off and put it back onto our magnetic sheet. And now I've got some micro beads in a little container here. I'm just going to peel the backing of this off. Oops, thought I had it. There we go. Okay. So I can just tip that into my microbeads. Okay, so now what I want to do is burnish that nicely into place. There we go. Voila, you can see you've got a beautiful gilded image and beaded image on top of that, okay? So now I'm going to bring my card back in. I'm going to use a bit of mounting foam on the back. I'm going to pop that up to go right across there. And I've done a sentiment, and I've gone ahead and cut it out with the oval inside of the Phoebe. Now, because that's beaded, what I want to do is add some glue to that. Get that nice and gluey. Pop that in the center. We're going to give that a second to set up and add a few flowers to that. I've done couple of the little flowers. I've got a tiny little one there, and I've got two of the slightly larger ones from the center of the Phoebe die. We're going to add those onto our sentiment. There we go. Right on the edge there. There we go, and there you have it. A lovely, really simple card, and I'm sure your recipient will wonder, how did you do that?